So Bane Slayer 88 won the Lotus Series 4 with his Sisay Radalite captain, 4 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw. The top 4 is actually kinda interesting. We have Nayela, Rocco and Temeshi. Now looking at Bane Slayer's decklist of Sisay, we have 6 different planeswalkers. Darevi and Emil the Blessed, obviously, together with Dockside Extortionist, and a Gaia's Cradle that is usually always auto-included. We have both Faber Elder and Bloom Tender, Sakashima the Impostor, Ertai Resurrected, Phyrexian Metamorph, Orcish Bowmaster. We don't have an opposition agent, and neither do we have the Daffy Voidwalker. He's only playing the Orcish Bowmaster. Teferi, Mage of... hard to pronounce that last part, but I've seen a few Sisay players actually pick this one up. The reason you play this is because you're gaining flash. Creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield have flash, which means that you can cast Teferi during someone's turn and then follow up by casting a Dockside Extortionist and winning on top of that. But it's also very key here, each opponent can cast spells only anytime he or she could cast a sorcery. This means that you also have a form of silence effect, so you're kinda combining Born Upon a Wind and Silence into one card, being legendary, boosting Sisay's power, but also being something that Sisay could tutor for. Olivia mobilized for war. The reason you played this thing is to give your Bloom Tender haste, or give your Selvala Heart of the Wild haste. Sigarda Font of Blessing is a card I usually don't see in many Sisay builds. It's a kinda cool card. It's giving you hexproof on your Sisay and your other key cards you need to protect, but also a kinda value engine, as you can cast humans and angels, but mostly humans in this case, from the top of your library. Sorceries, Demonic Tutor and Neoform. Worthy mention here, he is not playing Imperial Seal. We're playing the Cultist of the Absolute together with Chromatic Array, and as I already mentioned, 6 planeswalkers, the Hada Binder of Wills is one among them. There's a cool combo where you basically find Cultist, you find the Hada, and then you find Chromatic Array, and then usually afterwards you find Darevi to untap the Chromatic Array, and then you find Emil the Blessed, and boom, you have infinite mana and infinite CC activations. Then obviously Oath of Teferi together with Amenatu and Nikopolos the Dragon God that also creates a infinite loop. And the One Ring for mega value. He's also playing Agatha Sol's Cauldron, that is something you use to basically combo off with Gaia's Cradle, so suddenly you can tap Gaia's Cradle to activate Sisay, and with that you find the Revi that will untap the Cradle, and once again because of Agatha Sol's Cauldron you can convert that all green mana into a Sisay activation again to find Emil, and boom, you win. Now Sisay is currently performing really good in tournaments. We have 544 different Sisay deck entries into various tournaments, and from that we have achieved a average win rate of 26.78. You can see that minus 0.42, I started calculating at the start of this year, so from the start of this year she was above around 27%, and she's been dropping a tiny bit with 0.42%. Still, she's sitting very strong, and with that very high participation rate, 544, the win rate feels very securely, so we can probably trust that Sisay has that very good performance. But there are definitely options and decisions that you can make in your Sisay build that could take her to a higher potential performance. For example, Oath of Teferi has an inclusion rate of 80.5%, and with that they have an average win rate of 27.75. You can see the plus 0.97, basically 1%. It has basically increased Sisay's average win rate by basically 1%. So if you compare this, 26.78, the average win rate among decks including Oath of Teferi is better. At the same time, we can find bad decisions. For example, Underworld Breach, that's usually a great card, is showcasing a negative win rate. You can see there, minus 2.49. So 72 decks, an inclusion rate of 13.2, played Underworld Breach in their deck, and that average win rate is 24.29, which is a big difference compared to the total Sisay average. So let's look around at a few key Sisay cards that a lot of Sisay decks are considering as an option for their build. Obviously ignoring auto-includes. Don't think about the fact that their win rate is in red, because this is basically 100% inclusion rate. So it's going to get an equal win rate equal to the total average. And sure, there were a few decks that didn't play it and performed a tiny bit better, but that doesn't really matter. This has an basically auto-include position. We see Airtie was played by the champion, Bane Slayer 88, and it's sitting close to a 30% win rate, with a very high inclusion rate of 60%. Drana and Linvala is a very new card for Sisay, but as you can clearly see, it's not doing great. The champion, Bane Slayer 88, was not playing this. The Hada Binder of Wills does have a slight drop downwards on the win rate actually, but still it's fairly close to the average. And I want to point out that we have a 50-50 split. We basically have one group among the Sisay players who play the Hada and one group who doesn't play the Hada. And you can see here the group that do include the Hada are performing a tiny bit weaker compared to the other group. Our champion was actually playing Colossal Sky Turtle. This is a very cool card because channel blue generic, discard Colossal Sky Turtle, return target creature to owner's hand. You can bounce annoying creatures your opponent control, but you can also bounce your dockside. But you can also use the green variation, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So you don't normally play this as a big 6/5 flying for 7 mana. You're usually cycling this. Aminato is doing a great job inside Sisay, basically together with that Oath of Teferi. Ashiok Dream Render is sitting on a very strong 28.63 average win rate, a basic increase by close to 2%. A lot of people have been asking me about Calamity's Wake, and sure, it's appearing a little bit here and there all over the place in various different commanders. And it's not starting to see a huge inclusion yet. It's a decent card, but so far it hasn't really showcased a good performance. I don't think it's a bad card, and I wouldn't discourage anyone from actually playing this because it's just an overall filler. It's like an interaction that you can slam into your deck if you feel like you need more, but it's not showcasing a great performance. Also, the inclusion rate is showcasing that people are somewhat opting away from this strategy, so to say. Agatha Soul's Cauldron is doing great. Emil the Blessed is more or less an auto-include. Displacer Kitten is not doing great. Bane Slayer wasn't playing Imperial Seal, and as you can see here, a lot of decks actually aren't. There's only 116 decks in Sisay that is playing Imperial Seal, and I do agree with them. I don't actually play Imperial Seal inside my Sisay build anymore either. So yeah, and here you can see the results from that. It's not doing terrible. It looks like a card you could play, but the recommendation seems to be opting away from it. Cultists of the Absolute actually has a win rate pretty much very identical to the total average. And here we have a 50-50 split, so as you can see, it doesn't really have a huge impact if you're playing this or not. Flesh Duplicate is a new card, so we haven't had the time to see enough decks picking it up yet, but it's showcasing a good potential so far. Giganta, the Wellspring. This is not Giganta as a companion or in the 99, it's basically both. So here you have a 17.6, basically 96 decks that have played this, and it's sitting on a very strong 28 average win rate, so it seems to be a good card for Sisay in some shape or form. Lofo seems to be a good recommended card for Sisay. Gilded Drake seems to be a very good recommended card for Sisay, 28.50. I've actually cut my Gilded Drake from my Sisay build. I don't play against decks where I value stealing my opponent's creatures or commanders because they don't usually play them. So it's kind of the meta dependent. I have considered adding it back into my deck list because I've started to feel like it's a very strong tool when you really need it. And I can actually kind of see it because we are starting to see a lot of Orcish Bowmasters appear, and Orcish Bowmaster is an annoying card to play against when you're playing Sisay, because someone could be starting to just draw cards and your board state could get wiped away. And this is a good way to basically deal with that. Nimby Esteemed Speaker is a turbo card. The trick here is that once you have Dockside Extortionist, you use Sisay to find Nimby and then return Dockside back to your hand, recasting Dockside, gaining more treasures but also increasing Sisay's power and toughness. So this is a turbo card. It also has a kinda value capacity on it. It's got a legendary card, draw 2 cards, so yeah. But it's showcasing a very good promise. It seems to be a recommended card. I've actually cut this from my deck list, but as you can see, I'm not showcasing my... I am talking about my personal opinions and my personal experience, but I'm also showcasing how things are performing. So you're seeing more than just my personal experience, seeing data and such, and how things have been performing from tournaments and such. Olivia mobilized for war. I don't play this one either. I don't like this one either, but as you can see, it's doing good. So in contrary from my opinions, I am wrong, and apparently this thing is good. But then again, I also try to say statistics is not everything, player skill and other factors matters too. So will I add this to my deck? No. But maybe you should. It's up to you. I'm just showcasing some potential and some inspiration and ideas. I'm not playing this thing, and I'm not going to add this thing, and I don't think this thing is good. And as you can see, the flowering of the white tree is dropping the win rate by 1%, basically, having it in your deck list. Oath of Nissa seems to be doing good still, 28.43 average win rate, that is really good. Uku, Thief of Crowns, interesting. This is a Planeswalker. It's actually sitting on a very average middle win rate, but we have a 50-50 split, so it seems to be a card you could play. It's not going to affect your win rate that much. It could be very meta dependent, but it seems to be a decent choice. Phyrexian Metamorph is sitting very strong. Clones have been showcasing a very good performance in general, not just in Sisay, so I truly believe that this is a good choice. The basic trick here is that you copy someone else's dockside or your own dockside. Sisay basically wins from a dockside. Dockside is a one card combo for Sisay, so if someone else has a dockside and you have Phyrexian Metamorph, boom, there you go. Speaking of someone else's dockside, Sakashima the Imposter is a legendary that Sisay can tutor for, and boom, if someone has, let's say, a dockside on the stack and an ETB effect, you can basically activate and find this and resolve your dockside in response to their dockside and win in instant speed above their win. Rocco seems to be boosting up Sisay's win rate quite a bit. That Sigarda, that Bane Slayer was actually playing, has 60 deck entries, an 11% inclusion rate, but a big drop in its win rate. I actually don't think this is a great card, but hey, people have their own player preference, and it could be a good card depending on situations. Talion, I've talked a lot about Talion in various different videos. I've showcased that Talion is actually not performing that good as a commander. Let me actually give you an update on this. So this is Talion the Kindly Lord played as the commander entering into various tournaments. You have 197 tournament entries, so that's actually quite a lot. It's not the same amount of Sisay, but people have truly been bringing this to a tournament, and as you can see, 17.04. If you compare this to having Talion inside Sisay instead, the win rate is hugely better. So Talion seems to be a good card, it just doesn't seem to be a good card as a commander. And the basic answer is like, Dimir colors as the commander is lacking. Also, if you're trying to win with Thassa's Oracle with Talion in play, someone could actually cast the number value you have chosen on Talion and kill you. So it actually hurts the Dimir consult strategy a tiny bit even. But in Sisay it doesn't really matter because you're winning with other things. It's basically just a legendary heuristic study, which is perfect for Sisay. It's gonna boost Sisay's power and toughness, and you're gonna get an interaction and a value engine. Like if there's a Draenei Magistrate in play, Talion will help you in some shape or form by drawing you cards, maybe eventually draw into that Abrupt Decay to destroy the Draenei, and then cast your Sisay and start winning. So I can see that Talion is a good card, but not as a commander. This actually takes us to a very important discussion, something I talked about in a previous video when I showcased Kenrith. Turbo versus midrange, basically. As there is something of a war between turbo versus midrange, like how much turbo should you have, how much value engines should you have, etc. So in this video we're gonna look more into that and try to discuss further on if Sisay should be a mid-range commander or if Sisay should be a turbo commander. The verdict from the previous video with Kenrith was that Kenrith was basically a form of mid-range, more suited towards creature-heavy strategies. And well, Sisay is kind of the same, but we will talk about it continuously forward. The One Ring is doing an equal job, 50-50 split, and it has the basic identical win rate to the total average. Thassa's Oracle inside Sisay, yeah, pretty much the same. Wish Class Talisman seems to be a good choice. The reason for this is that you're finding Dockside and sending Wish Claw to someone else, trying to win this turn with your Dockside, is going to boost the treasure count you receive. I really don't like this creature. I don't play this, and neither should you, I think. I don't think this is a good card for Sisay. It's power creep. It's not bad. I mean, you're making treasures, and you're boosting Sisay's power and toughness, but still, I think this is power creeped out of this game. And as you can see, Kaleen Reclusive Painter is receiving a drop by minus 3.60%. Cyclonic Rift, basically 50-50 split, and it's getting the exact same total average as the total average. But we can do some tricks on this. So Cyclonic Rift, if is included in this case, but now we are also excluding Chain of Vapor, only looking into Sisay. So as you can see here, if you're excluding Chain of Vapor but still including Cyclonic Rift, the win rate goes up. And we can do some really advanced separations here to try and find a very good pattern of what could be a recommended Sisay build. So here we have Orcish Bowmaster, Oppo Agent, and Talion. Three basically kind of interactive value cards, so to say. Orcish Bowmaster is not really a value engine, but the other two kind of are. And then we're excluding the turbo combo stuff. We're excluding Adnos and we're excluding Underworld Breach. So we have 19 decks that are playing these three cards while they're not playing either Adnos or Underworld Breach. And they have an average win rate of 31.37. So now we're getting a very strong pattern, a showcase of the potential direction Sisay maybe should be taking. However, I want to emphasize something very important here. We only have 19 decks that have actually done this. The champion hadn't done this. He did not play Opposition Agent, and the result is not statistically significant because of this, but still it's showcasing a, what we call in studies, a pilot study, or a showcasing of potential promise. So don't trust that win rate, but this is something you probably should experiment more with. Now we can do this flip in a way. So now we are looking at Sisay playing that Underworld Breach, Lion's Diamond, and Brain Freeze, and also excluding the Planeswalker. So up there in the exclusion, you have the complete package of Aminato, Nicobolas, and Oath of Teferi. So this is 22 decks in Sisay that have gone for the Brain Freeze combo instead of the Teferi Planeswalker group Super Friends combo, and they have an average win rate of 21.28 from 22 decks. In other words, the Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze, Lion's Diamond combo might not be recommended for Sisay, but still 22 game tournament entries is pretty small, so you might need more games with this to truly say if it's truly trustworthy win rate. But still, it's not showcasing a good promise. It might be better to play that thing up there instead. And if we actually flip it like this, now we're looking at Oath of Teferi, Nicobolas and stuff, and we're excluding the entire Thassa's Consult package. We have 359 decks that have done this, and they have an average win rate of 27.83, showcasing a strong indication that this is a good thing to be doing. We can actually expand this further and do this. So now we're looking at Adnos, Thassa's Oracle, and Underworld Breach as the exclusions instead. So here you had only the Thassa's Consult, and now we're also testing the Grixis. The win rate is pretty much the same. As you can see, it did kind of drop a tiny... dropped nothing. It dropped a tiny bit. So now a lot of you are saying like, okay, we're getting a clear picture that Underworld Breach is bad. Not playing that. But I'm really proud of myself looking deeper into things. Look at this. We're moving the Underworld Breach from the exclusion into the inclusion. We have the exact same other two exclusions. We're only shifting the position on Underworld Breach. But now we're playing Underworld Breach with the entire Planeswalker Sisay package. If you remember this picture, here we were playing the Underworld Breach stuff, but excluding the Planeswalker package, but suddenly including both, but still excluding that Ad Nauseam and Thassa's Oracle. We're getting a very promising result. 30.36 average win rate. However, we only have 25 decks that have played this, and the result is not statistically significant. But there is something of a war on Sisay discussions in discords and such, that between the Planeswalker combo and versus the playing the Underworld Breach combo, and maybe the answer is play both. We can't truly trust this win rate, but I really believe that this is showcasing a good promise. Underworld Breach still seems to be a good card. But just because it's a good card, it might still not be... You might lack things, like it doesn't seem to be recommended throwing away the other key Sisay things. Speaking of the very key Sisay things, I did take a look at all the 6 Planeswalkers that the champion was playing, including all 6 of them, and in this case also excluding Adnos, and in this case Nayela the Blade Blossom. Some Sisay builds actually play Nayela, I play Nayela in my build. But the ones that are including all 6 of these Planeswalkers, they are a total of 216 tournament entries, with an average win rate of 27.22, which is stronger than the average total win rate of Sisay, so it's looking like this is recommended. And now we have to look at my favorite picture of all. This is the Grixis core shell, kinda. This is usually getting an enormously strong win rate whenever I look at this on other commanders like Tymna Kraum and such, but when you're looking at it in Sisay only, we have 7 decks total that have played Adnos, Demon Consult, Dockside, Tainted Pack, Phasas, and Underworld Breach, while excluding those 3 cards, Bolas, Doomsday, and Necropotence up there, and they're getting an 11.54 average win rate. So it doesn't seem to be a good thing, and people are strongly opting away from this kind of Grixis strategy, so to say. So once again, showing some more indication that you shouldn't be going for this combo, you should be kinda going for this combo, or potentially opting towards this. However, there's one more combo we definitely should look at, and that is the Derevi, Emil, and Cradle combo. That is also showcasing a very strong performance. We have 350 decks that have played this, it's a very high count, and yeah, we already looked at some of these cards during the big introduction of this video when we looked at individual cards, but them together they are receiving a 27.48 average win rate. That is a very strong and good performance. Now we can tweak the exclusion, because we already kind of figured out that excluding Adnos, Phasas, and Underworld Breach seems to be a good choice, but boom, we're swapping and changing. So Underworld Breach, Adnos, and Phasas could be in the deck or out the deck, it doesn't really matter. Now we're excluding Dehada and Imperial Seal and Nayela. Remember I talked about Imperial Seal showcasing a negative win rate? As you can see here, we're starting to see a stronger pattern towards that directive. Also excluding Dehada and Nayela seems to be a good choice. But we were seeing some very strong indication that including Dehada here was a good thing. Now we're suddenly seeing a a tiny increase by excluding Dehada. But what if we're trying to change with this picture? So we're moving Dehada, or the entire Cultist of the Absolute, Chromatic Array, and Dehada into the exclusion section. And we're still including all the 5 other Planeswalkers. So Bane Slayer, the champion, was including Dehada here. He was actually including all cards you saw in this picture, but the indication of 108x seems to be that you're getting a very positive win rate by cutting Chromatic Array, Cultist, and Dehada from your deck list. We don't have that much sample size on Flesh Duplicate yet, together with other cloning effects. As you saw in the previous when I showcased only Flesh Duplicate, now we're including 6 different combinations of Phyrexian, we're including Flesh Duplicate and Dockside. So you have Dockside Emil, you have Emil, Derevi, and Cradle, and then you have things like Phyrexian Metamorph together with Dockside and things. It's showcasing a very strong promise, high, probably recommended, but also the sample size is very low, result is not statistically significant, but it looks like something that people should be experimenting with more. The big takeaway, something I already mentioned, clones seems to be a very good thing for Sisay. Phyrexian Metamorph was showcasing a very good win rate before, when we looked at it individually. I asked in the Sisay Discord what they might be interested in seeing information on, and something they wanted to see was tutors. We already talked a tiny bit of Imperial Seal, but let's look at some other tutors. So now we're looking at Code of Calling and Final of Devastation, while excluding Eldamir's Call, and Eldritch Evolution. We have 68 tournament entries with this and an average win rate of 29.61, so that's good. Fun thing, when we're moving Eldamir's Call into the inclusion and placing Neoform in the exclusion instead, the win rate drastically drops. So this is a win rate above the CC average, and this is a win rate that is, sadder. Or it's not terrible, but it's lower than the total CC average. I was also asked about various spot removals, and this is showcasing a very good promise. Like, these are very strong spot removals. Now, we don't have a huge sample size of this. It can get a little bit larger if we're dropping the amount of spot removals. So suddenly from 30, we bump up to 68 by moving out Assassin's Trophy. But it looks like it's hard to say, like the sample size is very low, but maybe you should play more spot removals. In the end, we're seeing more and more Orcish Bowmasters appear, and that is a card that's very strong and dangerous for Sisay. So yeah, I can see that having spot removals inside Sisay is going to be more important going forward. It's also good versus that opposition agent that you really need to get rid of. I have been in so many different games where I sit with the win in my hand or board state and I look at an opponent's opposition agent and I'm saying, once I top deck my Abrupt Decay, I win the game. So let's talk about that mid-range or turbo. Is Sisay a mid-range commander or is Sisay a turbo commander? I would actually argue that this is a form of adaptive turbo build. We have a few stacks cards here. Wait, how many do we actually have? We have like Orcish Bowmaster and Ranger Captain kinda. And that's kinda it. If you go to the interaction section, we have Abrupt Decay, Force, Swan, Swords, Mental, Mindbreak Trap, Fears, Fire Covenant, Deflecting Swat, Fluster, Silence. If we jump over to this is my cEDH TV Sisay combo lock. This is my build. It is more control. I'm usually winning with this, but we have Laviniasaurus Renegade together with Possibility Storm. We have Deafening Silence. The champion Bane Slayer was not playing that. I have Oppo Agent, Notion, Fee, Thalia, Yasharn. I do play Daffy. I do play Kataki, Archon of Emeria. The reason I'm showcasing this build is I'm showcasing a more mid-range stacksy control build, so to say. So this deck build is basically trying to control the game quite a lot, while still obviously winning with that Doxa Distortionist. I do play Final Devastation and Demonic Tutor, similar to the champion. I do play Code of Calling, and I play a bunch of Interaction and Vamp Tutor. I play Gattoson's Cauldron. I don't play any of the Planeswalkers. But jumping back here, it is a much stronger, faster, I would say. This deck is trying to be faster than my deck, so to say. Like, Cultist of the Absolute is a very fast potential. Like, this is a turbo combo kinda for Sisay, so to say. And I did actually speak with Bane Slayer. One reason he's playing Teferi instead of me playing Kutsil, and I've heard this from other Sisay players, and I can agree with them, that if you put Kutsil into play, it is equal to putting a Grand Abolisher into play. You kind of become the target. So with Kutsil, you kind of put it into play, you pass turn. But Teferi is different. You put it into play in instant speed, and you try to win on the same turn, the same spot when you put it into play. So you're avoiding becoming the threat, and that is really good. So even though I would actually argue that this is something of a turbo build, it is also quite adaptive. It is trying to play a kind of value game as well. For example, we have Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Smothering Tide, and the One Ring. So there are value engines inside this deck. So sure, it has a turbo mindset, a turbo game plan with some like adaptive capabilities that could win on the spot. This is also flash, instant speed flash. We're going more like, okay, I was also going on instant speed interaction, so to say, but it's not trying to become the threat. If you look at my build, it's a very proactive threat creation. Like, you're putting Yasharn into play, you become the threat. You're putting Thalia into play, you become the threat. You put Kataki into play, you become annoying. You put Grand Arbiter Augustine into play, you become more annoying. But the question we were trying to answer in this video, and combination with the previous video when we looked at Kendriff, should Sisay be a turbo or mid-range build? And I think that the answer is something of more towards the turbo, but once again, even though this is a turbo build in my opinion of sorts, we still have a lot of value and a still of adaptability inside there. And once again, you're playing Sisay, you're going to be a toolbox commander. Like Olivia is a very strong turbo card, so to say. You have Bloom Tender, you have Olivia, you find Olivia with your Sisay, you go to your turn, you cast Bloom Tender, you use Olivia to give Bloom Tender haste, and boom, you try to win. I'm doing the same thing, or I'm trying to do the same thing, but I don't have an haste enabler, so I'm going for like, put Bloom Tender into play, pass turn, and if it survives, then yay, if it doesn't, boo. I really love criticizing myself. Magic is all about disagreeing. We have two different opinions about something, and we will see who is winning the more. And apparently the Bane Slayer is winning pretty much, and all of the cards I showcased weren't winning that much. But one thing I've talked a lot about in my previous Sisay videos is that one of Sisay's biggest problems is that she's pulling hate. She's becoming the target quite often. And something Bane Slayer 88 is doing with his build is that he's trying to avoid becoming the threat. He's trying to avoid becoming the target. And I really like that. I think that's a very good thing. That's even something he told me, and I totally agree with him. And I would like to mention that I'm kinda personally actually building a new Sisay build that is going to be more focused on Necropotence. It's gonna have pretty much a very similar take to the kinda turbo, grindy, controlly Sisay with some stacks, but then a Necro as an alternative, playing Bond Upon a Wind instead of Teferi. But hey, we will see how things turns out. When I make these videos, I'm trying to showcase the most important things. I'm trying to sit and analyze Sisay from different angles to give a direction, the big takeaway that I've learned from all the data. If there's anything specific you would like to know, feel free to drop a comment in the description below of the video, and I will try to answer that specific card's win rate and even a potential combination if you write it as well. Because if I'm going to showcase everything there is from the data sample size, this video could get very long and also boring. Because all of you are basically interested in various different things. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, as we're going to continue looking into various commanders and compare them for turbo or mid-range to get a good understanding of what this format kind of is.